my name's Hina. I'm a consultant neurologist and a research fellow, and I've got with myself Caitlin Illingworth, who is one of our research assistants. And today we're basically talking about CogniSpeak, which is a cognitive digital assessment tool which is being developed in Sheffield to identify people with cognitive impairment and dementia. And essentially this talk is going to focus on how we're ensuring that CogniSpeak, this digital tool, is inclusive and representative from the offset of design. So next slide. So, as you know, dementia is an ever-increasing problem with its highest increases in minority ethnic communities predicted to be up to 7-fold just in the South Asian communities. We also know that in minority ethnic communities, people that tend to get diagnosed earlier and die sooner compared to their white population counterparts. And why is this? It's multifactorial. So there's social and there's diagnostic barriers that lead to this, including deprivation in these communities, lack of appropriate and accurate diagnostic tools. Knowledge is still an issue where some languages don't even have a term for dementia. Stigma plays a huge part for people coming out and even seeking a diagnosis. And all of this goes on to influence how people engage with research and over time leading to deeper health inequalities. So what we are doing with CogniSpeak is working with our local community minority ethnic groups to ensure that CogniSpeak from the offset of design is inclusive and generalizable. And Caitlin's going to tell you a bit about how we're doing that.
So currently the memory assessment tools used in memory clinics to try and diagnose dementia are overwhelmingly based on the norms and the performance of individuals who are white and who speak the assessment language as their first language, which is a real issue for the 1 in 5 people in the UK who are part of a minority group and the 1 in 12 people who speak English as an additional language. Which is why CogniSpeak, which is an online digital assessment tool to try and pick up memory impairments at its earliest stages, we're actively trying to work with these minority community groups who speak English as an additional language in the early stages of the development of the program to make sure that it will be representative and useful across all the potential groups who will be using it. So CogniSpeak itself is a language-based memory assessment. So what happens is the individual speaks to one of these artificial agents, and then their speech is recorded and analysed by artificial intelligence, which picks up differences in kind of the prosody, the tone, and the actual content of the speech itself, which can identify individuals experiencing memory impairment. And we collaborated with ISRAC, which is a Somali community group in Sheffield, and we collaborated with them and some research champions from within the community. So we trained them on how to administer the memory assessment tools commonly used across memory clinics, the most commonly used of which is the MoCA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And this is, again, overwhelmingly based on the norms of white people who speak English, whereas the multicultural cognitive examination and the Roland Universal Dementia Assessment Scale have been developed with the idea in mind that it can be used across different demographics and across individuals who don't speak the assessment language as their first language. But this is really, really rarely used across memory clinics. It is overwhelmingly the MoCA. So our 2 research champions shown up here, Musa and Sarah, they recruited 52 individuals from this Somali community group to complete these cognitive assessments, as well as CogniSpeak, because we wanted to see how CogniSpeak compared to the currently used pen and paper assessments in terms of its accuracy. So what we found was that 46% of the people from the Somali community group would have been classed as having a cognitive impairment based on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, whereas just 2% of the individuals who completed the MCE and the RUDAS were identified as having a cognitive impairment. And the key thing to bear in mind is all of the individuals who took part were cognitively normal. So by comparison, when we looked at the machine learning's ability to identify the diagnostic status of these Somali individuals, we found that CogniSpeak had a 97.6% diagnostic accuracy, which is really promising, but this has only been done with 1 community group so far who speak Somali as their first language, and we're not yet sure how other language backgrounds or other minority groups could access CogniSpeak and how accurate it would be with them. So specifically within these memory assessment tools, there's something called a verbal fluency task, which is either a category, so a semantic, so name as many animals as you can in a minute, or a phonemic fluency task, so name as many words as you can that begin with a certain letter, commonly the letter P. And this is present across all these pen and paper assessments, but also in CogniSpeak. So what you can see here is that the Somali community scored significantly lower on these verbal fluency tasks compared to a white British cohort for comparison. But when we dived a little bit deeper into exactly what was contributing towards this lower score, some interesting points came up. So one of the Somali participants said that when they were responding to the phonemic fluency, that P doesn't exist in Somali. Commonly, so P and B are interchangeable for individuals who have Somali as their first language. They were scoring so much lower, and this participant actually went on to say no words. So it wasn't because they had a memory impairment, it was just because their first language was Somali and they couldn't produce any relevant words for this task. Similarly, when completing the animal fluency task, one individual says that they knew it all in Somali, but they didn't know the translation in English. So again, this inability to produce accurate words for these assessments is not because of a memory assessment issue, or the issue in their memory, rather, it was more of a language barrier. So we're now trying to work to make sure that the AI that we are using to identify individuals with memory impairments from their language is based on the norms of such a diverse cohort that it's not artificially picking up memory impairment just because of these language barriers. And that's why we're now trying to work with all these other community groups to make sure that it is provided that different language background and different cultural backgrounds when creating and analysing the potential for these different speech produced and the actual tasks themselves.
So thank you, Caitlin. So we are now actually going on to recruit from South Asian and Chinese communities to help train CogniSpeak to do this. So we'll go to the next slide. So to be honest, none of this can be achieved without understanding the communities we work with. And the way we managed to do this was, as Caitlin said, training research champions from within the community to be able to deliver workshops alongside us in the language of the people and also in the comfortable environments that are comfortable for the people from those communities. This process essentially needed the integral part of research champions and the community engagement for CogniSpeak to be successful in showing these meaningful results. Also, it allowed us to build and maintain relationships with these community groups, which are most likely going on to support other research projects in the future. So, next slide. To kind of evaluate this, we got a little bit of money to look at the impact of working together with these community groups. And you can see in these beautiful impact flowers, the before and after with the Somali community, that people felt more valued, felt part of a team, and improved trust with the research teams, which essentially over time we were able to demonstrate would continue in that research engagement process. So next slide. So we're really proud of the work we've done with our community groups, and we were awarded recently with the Global Made With Patients Award, where our research champions, and you can see them starred, Sarah and Musa, went to Milan to collect the award on behalf of the CogniSpeak team. So I'll leave you just with this. So the NIHR states that everybody benefits from working together, and if we go to the next slide, it takes a team to make things meaningful. So thank you very much for listening.
So two questions, yes. Just the CogniSpeak task is listening to an in-person testing situation. It's not an administrative task.
So CogniSpeak is an online platform basically where you have an artificial agent who asks you a question, like what did you do over the weekend? And then the participant's response is recorded online, and then that's analysed by AI. So it is both administering the assessment and then also analysing it.
Given it's artificial, would it also not make sense to do it in Somali, the Somali first language, or develop it to administer in the language of
So absolutely. So this is the next chapter of exploring if CogniSpeak can be done in the native language. So we've done it in English. We've seen these differences. So next step is to do native language.
A second question, sorry. Obviously the tasks that you're comparing against are just screens essentially. They're not providing much, neuropsychological detail. I take it the next step is to do that with more detailed neuropsychological batteries that we use in research and kind of work up. I also I wonder if, my second point, I wonder if there could be sort of more of a way to also look at frontal lobe degeneration type of conditions as well in that more detailed neuropsychological assessment. We do focus very much just on memory and Alzheimer's, but this could also maybe distinguish between different types of FTLE conditions with the synaptic dementia and the PA, and that's
absolutely
as well.
Yeah, so I'll answer the first bit about, so the next stage, so these findings are from healthy controls, so healthy volunteers. So the next step essentially is to ensure that people from, with the condition MCI, Alzheimer's, the other types of dementia are being recruited to see if these are still results that we find and to validate against the cognitive screens that we are doing, which are MoCA, MCE, RUDAS. As far as kind of other more detailed neuropsychology, that's not being explored at the moment with these, but potentially we would be with further grants. With regards to differentiating different conditions, so yes, from what we've understood from the computer science team, that yes, only small numbers of cohorts are needed to be able to differentiate that. But yes, we are looking at which tasks are best at being able to differentiate, because this is one task. We've got a picture task, there's reading tasks, so there's different tasks that CogniSpeak does with the participants, and which one will be the best to represent the syndromes.
I was just going to also quickly say, it is currently the idea is that it will be used as a screening tool. So currently in Sheffield, there's a 2-year wait list to actually see someone in the memory clinic, but a large portion of those people either don't have any evidence of neuropathological disease, or they are at a stage where there is no real intervention that could help them, so potentially getting that really early diagnosis and being able to have that social prescribing.
I'm not suggesting it's not worth it.
No.
So, as an extension, it could also be able to quickly screen people. You have more semantic dementia, you have more of a NCI, Alzheimer's disease track as well. Would be quite useful in that respect. These are not very good at that.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think for that we actually need to start recruiting patients to be more certain of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hina. So